reporter at SC Magazine, and I'm here with Paul Smith, CEO of PacketMotion, and they do insider threat management and compliance. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Good. So we're going to be talking about insider threats today, and I'm curious, what are the threats that you're hearing from customers associated with insiders that they are most concerned about?
The kinds of threats we're hearing about are ones where insiders have some information about what's going on in the company, and they then use their credentials to get into assets, often financial assets, which they then use to make some kind of financial gain. So that's one type of threat. The other threat is they'll try and steal intellectual property and then sell that to other people for financial gain. But it's mainly transactions that are intended for the financial gain of the person that commits the threat.
And can you give us some actual examples of anything you've heard?
Well, we've seen cases. We've actually have some customers that I can't name, as you can imagine, who have had significant loss of intellectual property, where someone has gone into a server and they have legitimate access rights. So really, the term we use is abuse of legitimate access. Someone has access, but the pattern of access that they're using is what is the problem, and they grab some asset, whether it's software source code, information about trading algorithms if it's a financial institution, and then use those for their benefit, either sell them or use the transaction information to benefit. In financial services, if you can figure out transactions that are coming, if you know that your employer is about to execute some transactions, you can then go execute transactions of your own that will actually produce financial gain for yourself.
Mm-hmm. So is compliance a driver for insider threat, for organizations to address insider threats?
It is. It overlaps with insider threat. In some companies, the two are the same, and some they're different. Compliance regulations often cover certain types of insider threats, and then there are other insider threats that aren't covered. For example, if you have PCI data is of course covered by PCI regulations, and also represents an insider threat as well, because you can steal credit card information. In the case of intellectual property, there may not be a regulation that covers protecting your software source code, but you have your own reasons for wanting to protect it.
So when an auditor comes in and is assessing PCI compliance, for example, what do they look for in terms of insider threat protection?
Yeah, so auditors will come in from the merchant services bank that is clearing your credit cards, and what they're looking for are assets that are exposed to insiders. Recently, they've been looking for a case where if you have servers sitting on the network that have PCI data and they're connected to your main corporate network, they consider that to be a problem now. They didn't used to. The reason is they've seen threats, they've seen attacks where those servers are compromised. So they're asking the companies they're auditing to move those assets and put them behind a firewall. Our customers are resisting that, though, because firewalls are expensive. It means you're putting a device between the users and the asset, and that makes people very uncomfortable. We have a different approach we call virtual segmentation that allows you to protect those assets without putting devices between the users and the asset. So the PCI, the big thing in the last 18 months around PCI is this notion of segmenting the credit card data from the rest of the network.
And what sort of organizations are looking at insider threats, or should be looking at? Is it just those regulated?
Well, it tends to be people who are regulated, but what we're seeing is more and more companies that are not regulated are deploying our equipment or other vendors' equipment to protect insider data that is not subject to compliance. So there's the data that is covered by compliance, and then there are other assets that are not. And the types of companies, of course, financial services tends to be the biggest area because the data on the network has financial value. Those are probably half of our businesses there. And then we're also seeing companies of all sizes that have intellectual property. We have companies as small as 100 employees who have software they care about that they want to protect. And then we have Fortune 100 companies, of course, as well. So it's a very broad range of size of companies as well as verticals. Almost every vertical, at least in our case, is present in our sales activity. We're seeing a very broad level of concern about both compliance and insider threats.
So organizations across all sizes and all verticals should be concerned.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing, and I think it's dawning on some of the smaller organizations that they have a problem as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of an ongoing learning process.
Mm-hmm. So give us some best practices for protecting against some insider threats.
Typically, people will use log data, and log data is a good start. But log data gives you a fairly limited picture after the fact of what's happening. People also use agents that they put in servers, but most of our customers come to us because the agent deployments they have aren't working well for them. They add too much risk, they slow down servers and so forth. Our particular solution is very different from all those other ones in that we collect information off the network without interfering with the network. So best practices certainly start with logging.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should have some kind of log management system,
Mm-hmm.
but that will just give you kind of the first phase of protection. There are other tools that you're going to need to really protect your data.
Okay, and they're available today.
They are, of course, we have one, but there are others as well.
Okay, great. Well, Paul, thank you for joining us and
All
telling us some more about insider threats.
Great.
And thanks to you for watching. Have a great day.